Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt here with Life Coach Dean McMurray, and this is your Daily Dose of Happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today, and we have kind of a nice and easy day today. We don't have emails to work with, but I picked out a couple of little topics for us to address, and Dean's giving us a new look today. He's giving us the hatless look, which looks
right, hatless look.
The hatless look, yes.
Yeah.
Not that most podcast listeners care because they're just listening, but still,
right,
it's fun.
right.
If you're watching us on YouTube, then it's a lot more fun that way. But yeah, how's it going? How are you doing?
It's going well. It's going well. You know, taxes for us are done, so that's a stressor true. That's done. And I am excited to say it was the first year in many, many years that we actually got a return.
You mean a refund?
Yeah. So a refund from the federal state. Now, we do have to pay a little into state, the darn state, but, as a business owner, it's always challenging in how you manage your taxes with your tax person, and strategize. And
I do my own taxes, which makes it even more challenging. Yeah.
There you go. Well,
but,
so always can be a challenge, stressful times sometimes.
Well, over the years, I figured out my formula for making sure that I always contributed enough money throughout the year so that I have at least a better than even chance of getting a refund, which is nice.
Right. Well, I know one year that in the beginning, it sounds like the beginning of a story, but in the beginning, for our business, we didn't pay in. We weren't paying in, and boy, did we get hammered. Yeah. And it was 1 year we had to pay a lot of money, and we were like, how do we do it?
Right.
We did it, but we were like, we got to make a change. And so,
it's not too difficult to calculate, but it's not like they make it really easy.
Well, right. And regardless of but it's interesting is if you, I think we were talking about this on one of the previous shows about emotional attachment to money and finances and, that type of, just kind of, sometimes a lot of people get stressed and, and I know I could feel it because I was just like, I always was cringing a little bit, but when we, was like, hey, you're getting a decent little return back from the government and be like, well, thank you very much. That's always nice to hear. Right. And even though it's pretty much your money you're getting back. Right. So, but regardless, it's, I just find it interesting to, especially throughout the year, but focus on, just the things that you can be grateful for instead of worrying about, the tax aspect or, focusing on that.
And I was one of those people for many, many years. And for good reason, because we had some really, really dry years, really, really rough years financially. And so it got to the point where, the taxes would come around. And like I was telling you, I do my own, and nothing worse than having to do the taxes when you're in a bad place emotionally because of where you're at financially. Amazingly enough, COVID year turned out to be a good year for us.
Right.
Which is really strange. It's very, very strange.
Same for us. And I'm very thankful for that. And,
so this is the first year in memory where not only did I get them done early, but I felt good about it.
Nice.
And I felt good about it throughout the year, which I think contributed to it. Plus, this is another big deal for us. Since we got married, we have never been out of debt. Never. Not once. That's about to change. By May, we're going to be completely out of debt.
Wow. Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
And it was substantial, particularly around the time that I started the podcast. It was substantial. It was really, really high. It was so high. I thought we were going to end up in bankruptcy court.
Oh, wow.
It was really, really bad. But we chipped away with it. We had a little bit of help. Funny thing to say. Not all that funny, I guess. But when my mom died, obviously we got a little money out of that. So that helped some. But COVID year, that was a strange year. That was a really strange year.
You
know,
and
we
it
paid
is.
down a lot of debt that year.
Well, and you know,
strange.
for a lot of people, a lot of their expenses were down. A lot of people were at home, right? But for some folks too, is that, you know, what's a lot of people, I found interesting the dynamics depending on what, I guess, market you worked in or, you know, what you were doing for work. Some were really hurting out there. There were people that were really hurting and still are, make no mistake about it. But then other folks showing tremendous growth at the same time, depending, you know, again, depending on what market you were in. You know, take, home repairs and improvement, you know, up, real estate up, furniture sales up.
But I can take it a step further than that, because when I said it was a really strange year, what I mean is we had a very down year. We had, compared to previous years, we were down 50 to 60%.
Okay.
And yet we come through at the end of the year with more money than I expected. And I kept double checking the books, like, did I mess up someplace? No, I didn't mess up. I got it all right. And we were able to pay down large chunks of that old debt. And I can't tell you why it happened. I'm pretty good at math.
Right.
I mean, I scored really high on my SATs. I can't tell you why it happened. I can't quite figure it out. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me, other than the fact that because of COVID, we didn't go anywhere.
Right.
You know, so, you know, discretionary spending was like close to zero.
Right.
You know, because we just didn't do it. I mean, it wasn't actually close to zero, but, you know, it was very low compared to other years. I think that probably made the difference. That, combined with the fact that I had been very, very focused on reducing and eliminating that debt. And I know it sounds strange. I attribute it to the law of attraction. I don't have any other way to explain it.
No, absolutely. And I completely agree with you, Walt, that, you know, when you're focusing on the positives and really focused and aligned with, you know, the direction that you want to go to and what you want to attract. Absolutely. I mean, you know, interesting, because you said that the dynamic where your income was down
substantially,
comparatively, substantially, but at the same time, you came ahead further.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like,
I'm still
wait a minute. Did I hear that right? It's like, hello, these things working? Like,
double check that math again. That can't be right. You know?
Right.
Seriously, I went over the math numerous times just to make sure that, and a lot of it had to do with just kind of the quirky ways that the cash flow of our business works.
Sure.
That was part of it, because we're a seasonal business. I mean, it's Louise's gardening maintenance services business.
Sure.
And we have high employment costs because we're paying gardeners to do the work, more so than many businesses do. I mean, we have very, very high payroll costs. And yet somehow our payroll costs as a share of overall income was significantly smaller. And that's not the way it usually works. When your business is down, usually your employment cost is higher as a percentage of the overall income. And I don't know why it was lower. All I can think is our employees were really efficient this year. That's the best I can think of. And it's like, wow, boy, if we could do that with some big incomes, we could have a great year.
Right. Well, and why not? Why can't it be, you know, whatever, get the Sharpie out and, you know, write that big number above our heads. As far as in fact, we were talking last show about, you know, that magical number above our head, what we believe that we're worth, right? You know, why can't we? Why can't we do that?
We can.
We can. Absolutely. Why?
And by the way, not so much number, but value. That I attribute that appreciating value to the best explanation I can give for our success, because we always appreciate our employees. We have a great staff. We really do. And I think part of what happened is last year we had a great staff for the entire year. Usually we've had to hire somebody new, and occasionally it doesn't work out and that kind of thing. Funny thing is, when you bring on somebody who doesn't really do well, it really pulls everything down. But when everybody on board, everybody who's on the team is great, not only does it make the job smooth, and not only does it make the workflow smooth, it makes the company more profitable. And we show our appreciation. I mean, we give nice raises, we give bonuses where we can. I mean, and I guess it really shows just how valuable being appreciative is. Just how valuable, appreciating your staff and just every opportunity that we had to tell them, wow, you're doing great. We really loved your work. We love your attitude. I mean, there was one time where one of our staff members, one of our gardeners, went way over and above for a customer who really didn't deserve it. To be perfectly frank, she really didn't deserve it. But this employee went way, way beyond the call of duty. And we gave her a nice bonus as a thank you for it. And I think we actually lost money on that particular deal. But it didn't matter because we wanted to appreciate them.
Right.
Oh, my God. Now that I see the numbers at the end of the year, and I know that particular employee's work, I can just imagine how that appreciation just made her more efficient. Just because she felt good.
Well, and we've all seen that, right? You take stores where they treat their employees beautifully. Mm-hmm. Not only do they compensate them well abundantly in the financial aspect, but they just treat them like good people, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And you can feel it. You can feel the vibe, the overall, energy of the store, and the level of customer service. People are more attentive. Mm-hmm. The turnovers, employees are lower. And in turn, guess what? People love shopping there or doing business with that company because they have a great experience, or they're more likely to refer somebody to go there. Hey, oh my God, I love that place. I don't always need to go there all the time, but I tell everybody that I can to go there because they're just so great to work with. So if you need their whatever services or product, go see them, right? Mm-hmm. And so, it costs nothing to be a decent human and treat people well, even if you're paying minimum wage. And
which we don't. We pay well above minimum wage. I think that's a big piece of it too. I think you actually get more cost-effective work by paying good people well than you get by paying mediocre people lower amounts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because when you know that because everybody, and I would say 99% of folks that are out there in the workforce today that are working for a paycheck, are working hard. They put in, the effort. There's a 1% rule, but, it's, and if somebody is getting paid peanuts saying, I don't really feel appreciated. Boy, I don't really get paid what I should be, and I would case in point, I would say, like, for example, teachers. I've said this for years, and a big proponent of, that teachers don't get paid, in my opinion, what they're worth. And, that's just one industry, but, talking about, there's so many others. And, doing so much. But when somebody is able to get paid what they're worth, then they're going to show up different. It's like, hell yeah, now get it. Granted, again, I'll go back and I will validate that again. I believe it's very low, a 1, maybe 2% rule of some people get lazy. They're not hungry anymore. And saying, ooh, I'm making the big money now. I don't have to work as hard, or I don't have to, show up the same as I did when I was making minimum wage. Wrong. It's like,
a great way to lose a job, actually.
Right. Actually. Right. Yeah. And I had a great piece of advice one time. When I was in the military, they always said that everybody called me Mac. Right. And that was kind of same with my dad. And they said, Mac, you remember this as you go through life. every job you have, whether military or civilian or whatever, you're always interviewing for your next position in everything you do.
That's a good point.
Somebody is watching what you're doing, even if you think they aren't.
Yes.
And somebody will see it even if you feel alone, they're not watching. Somebody is watching. And guess what? You're auditioning, you're interviewing, whatever, and saying, God, I love the way that they show up. I love the way how they every morning, I just, love their work ethic, whatever. And when you come available as far as looking for new employment, somebody that likes the way that you work is going to be like, I would love them to work for me.
Mm-hmm.
Or they'll be like, I've seen them work for the last, and I would not have them do work, whatever. So it's going to go either way. But
I think over time too, we've become really sensitive on that point where if we have somebody on the staff, and we don't right now, everybody's wonderful. If we have somebody on the staff who really isn't cutting it, they go quickly. We'll either drive them out or they'll leave on their own, but it's gotten to the point now, we won't keep them around for a week even. I mean, they're going very, very fast. Whereas the ones that are really good, they get the nice pay raises. They get treated really great. They're the ones to stick around. And you do that long enough, you get to the point where we're at right now, where your entire staff is absolutely fabulous.
Right.
Which is, I think, the way to do it. And by the way, we do the same thing with the customers. I think this is also something that's really important. We have a way of describing what a number of companies do, but we just describe it in a rather terse way. We say we fire customers. And what we mean by that is if there's a customer who, one of those squeaky wheel types, nothing's ever quite good enough, or they're constantly changing their mind and you can't ever satisfy them, we fire them. One way or another, we'll either just not invite them next year, or if it's really bad during the year. Last year I fired 2 customers. Both of which were just, they were complaining and moaning about really ridiculous stuff that it was just them trying to be in control more than anything else. We said, we're done with you. We got so many clients, which wasn't true last year. Normally it is true. Last year it wasn't true. We got so many different clients. We don't need you. Go away. And the moment that we do that, first of all, we feel better. Second of all, almost every time I would have to really sit back and think, is there an exception to this? And I don't think there is. Almost every time that we do that, within usually 24 hours, we get a new customer to replace them. And that's the most fascinating part about it. You feel like, because you're afraid, oh my God, I'm going to give up some income that way. I'm going to give up some business that way. But you actually don't. And I think I think this is vibrational. I think
absolutely.
When you're getting into a place of letting go of, because what you're letting go of is all that angst and frustration and doubt and worry and so forth, as you're getting rid of the customer who's helping to inspire all of those wonderful things. So when you're getting rid of all of that, you just rise to a better place. You get to a better place, and then all of a sudden good things start to happen. Yeah.
I'm a big believer in that we should never make our clients feel that they need us. And we should never feel that we need our clients.
I agree with that.
Yeah. So if we can just show up and be, hey, I provide X, Y, Z, whatever that is. And if somebody, like you say, is as a client is not a fit anymore, maybe, or whatever the case is, we shouldn't be in a place. And I get it. We all have an ups and downs with finance or whatever. But at the same time, you shouldn't feel, even if things aren't all roses in the financial sector.
We're in the roses business too. We're the gardening business.
Right. So, but at the same time is, you're actually doing your company and yourself a disservice by continuing to provide services or products to a client that is not vibrationally supporting, or is it equal, let me just say that, is it equal match, not supporting, but an equal match to you or your company. Because it shouldn't be like, hey, I need you to support me in a sense, and you need me to support. No, it's about the vibrationally energetic match.
Yeah. I don't think
saying,
it's support either.
you know, you feel good, you know, like, hey, and it should be the same with anybody else as well. If they're say, for example, they're hiring me, and after a while, for some reason, they feel that the business relationship that, you know, that we have is no longer a vibrational match. I would hope that somebody would be like, you know, as much as I love working with you, I think I need to make a switch.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
mm-hmm.
and things change in life too. We understand that. Sometimes you got to go, you know, pull away. But, yeah, I'm a complete believer in that we shouldn't need others to fulfill our business.
And we think of it a little bit differently, but it's basically the same idea as what you just laid out very nicely. The way we think of it is we only want to work for customers that love us, and we only want to work for customers that we love.
There you go.
And when the love works in both directions, it's great. Right. And by the way, that happens to be the case for 90% of our customers. So it's not like we have to do a whole lot of filtering. But getting rid of those other 10% that don't really fit there, boy, it's amazing how much of a difference that makes.
And I gotta say,
really big difference.
And I gotta say, the whole time you're talking, Walt, ever since you said the love boat, all I'm thinking is love boat. I'm like, which character am I? This is how Dean's weird head works. Am I the athletic director? Am I or the activities director? Am I was like, oh Lord. So
I thought you were the captain of the boat, but what the
hell? Yeah, he was bald, wasn't he?
He was, yeah.
Yeah, there he was.
So why not?
Yeah, that was a golden oldie there.
That's a really old one, yeah.
That was show 'em age.
Interesting that we ended up talking about the finances of being in business or actually working for a business. It works either way, the same way. Because the little topic I was going to bring up was something I saw in a Facebook group, and it was somebody asking a really, really basic question from an LOA perspective. I figured, well, we do basics every once in a while. Let's bring it in. Mm-hmm. He was asking, how do I stop vibrating in the frequency of lack? Well, isn't that what we were just talking about?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think it usually, for the most part, it's any time we're usually talking about lack, the number one that usually comes up is money.
Yes.
Usually. And then of course there's love and other things, but typically the forefront is money, right? And, but regardless, lack is lack. There's, for whatever reason, our egos or our mind feels that, we need more for whatever reason. Mm. Interesting is, a couple things that I would say, Walt, is for that individual that is, you kind of said getting back to basics. I think is a great reminder for all of us that we can all, doesn't matter how far down the journey we are, we can all go back to basics and say, you know what, when was the last time that I focused on gratitude? Just for the day, right? And the one that you love talking about is self-love, and, where am I with myself? Taking stock of these things. The other one is, the nickel analogy. Who are the 5 people that I've been hanging most time around? Mm-hmm. Are they influencing my decisions? Is it the same? And just let me say, the same broke ass people that I'm hanging around because I'm the same? And we're all complaining that we're broke and we don't have enough money. Now, I'm not saying that you have to hang around rich people or people that have more money than you do. It doesn't matter where you are with your bank account. It's where you are with your mind account.
Yes, exactly. That's precisely it.
Yes. So ditch the bank account, a lot of people, get the mind account.
A lot of people, if you want to carry the money analogy out further, a lot of people settle for bankrupt relationships.
Yes. Yeah.
Basically relationships that not only don't pay, but actually take away.
Right.
The subtractive relationship.
Right. Yeah.
And then they wonder why it is that they're not getting anywhere and why it is that they're constantly complaining about that particular relationship and how can I attract a better behavior out of that person and so forth. It just becomes this ongoing string of failures, really, of frustration.
Or just, that cycle, right?
Yeah.
Just the ongoing cycle.
It's a cycle that just keeps going and going and going. Because like Abraham says, we take ourselves with us wherever we go.
And I also want to add to that too, because the people that are sitting out there right now may be listening that talking about the lack, saying, yeah, Dean and Walt, but what happens if I win the lottery? Well, let's take that analogy for a minute. And let's take some of the stories of some of the people that went from rags to riches overnight because of the lottery. They got lucky enough. They won it.
Yep.
They paid whatever, and they got millions. And now all of a sudden, essentially overnight, they're millionaires.
Right.
Guess what? How long did that last? And they're right back to most of them. Now, I would say, and I'm just and I don't know the actual percentage, but I know it's high. And so
it's one of the reasons that many states switched over to, instead of paying a full jackpot out, pay it out over 20 years.
Right.
Because that way, I mean, now it's usually an option that the winner gets to decide one way or another, but they really encourage you to take the 20-year option, because that way you at least have a nice 20-year income going on instead of blowing it all at once on some stupid business deal or something like that.
I got 1 million rubber ducks.
Yeah.
It was a great deal.
Great deal, right?
Yeah. I don't know. It's certainly interesting. It's for sure, but it starts in our hearts and it starts in our minds, and you got to change your behavior before you can change your pocketbook.
And you have to change your thought process before you can change your behavior.
Yes. And everything else is residual.
That's right.
So talking about, hey, I've heard people, even clients say, Dean, getting frustrated, and they wanted to work on more abundance, and saying, sure, let's work on abundance. And so you start them off very basic and say, let's work on, you talk about self-love, and we talk about gratitudes, and they get all pissed off and saying, why am I starting here? Like, we should be talking about, and it's like, okay, you're down the other way. You're down the other path right now. You're not seeing where obviously your vision is clouded. And they don't realize that if you start building the gratitude, and you start building the self-love and resilience, and you start building that energy up in front of you that's positive, everything else will become residual. The magnetism that is law of attraction will start attracting, maybe that higher paying job.
Well, that's how you end up with a year like we had last year.
Yeah,
where the income was down and we end up ahead.
How do you, you entered, you entered the money paradigm.
You have now entered the twilight zone.
Hey, right. Right. It's like, I love it, but,
it's fabulous.
Just very interesting stuff. And it certainly is fascinating, but,
I also picked up a quote from my friend Joel Elston, who listeners will be interested to hear. He's going to be joining Monique Scott and me tomorrow. So I want to pay attention to that. But he posted something on his timeline today, a quote from Lao Tse, the Chinese philosopher. Really good one. I like this one a lot. It says, care about what other people think and you will always be their prisoner.
Yes. Absolutely.
And isn't that, going back to your example, you gave the example of the guy who you're trying to teach how money works and so forth, and you're starting on the gratitude thing and so forth. And what was the answer that you hypothetically gave? It was something like, we're on the wrong, what are you showing me this stuff for?
Why are we doing this?
I'm dealing with all these people over here, and you're telling me this?
Right.
Well, who are those people you're dealing with, and what are you thinking about them?
Right.
Are you spending all your time caring about what they think about you? Well, is that any different in any significant way from not feeling grateful?
Yeah.
Is there any significant difference there? Because I don't think there is.
And the other aspect of feeling that you need their approval, or you need to be needed or wanted, right?
Yep.
So then you almost have to go beyond all that, get to the root of really why.
That's right. Yeah.
And eliminate that so it doesn't come back around and bite you in the ass, so to speak, again.
Right.
And then move on. So it's kind of like, getting the dirt behind the dirt, so
the
to
dirt
speak.
behind the dirt. Ooh,
the
I like
dirt
it.
behind the dirt. Get through the layers, the onion.
That's definitely what a coach or a therapist does. Get at the dirt behind the dirt.
The dirt behind the dirt, right? The OxyClean
it.
commercial, yeah.
OxyClean. Well, you're
what would you pay? Don't ask.
Today. Yeah, right.
It's ShamWow. Do an infomercial.
You also mentioned earlier that we tend to associate lack with financial stuff, which is predominantly true. It's interesting, though, how the concept of lack does apply in all areas of stuff that we want. Relationships are the first thing that comes to my mind. I mean, I know why dollars came to your mind first, but relationships come first to my mind because I just marvel at how many people live in relationships of lack, love to complain about it, and then wonder why nothing ever gets better.
Right.
I just marvel at that. Right. I mean, regardless of whether you believe in the law of attraction, doesn't that just sound crazy?
Well, the definition of crazy, Walt, doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result, right?
Yeah.
So, and I know personally, I've been there. I've been, in that insanity cycle, and just like, if I keep on hitting this thing over and over and over again with a big enough hammer, it's going to go, and and for some, I know for me personally, it was more about conditioning. That's what I came to believe. That's what I was told. Like, just push through it. You're good. You're strong. You can do it. And it's like, but realizing that you don't have to do it like that. It doesn't have to be hard. Like, it can come so easy.
Interesting thing too about relationships and money where lack is concerned. Because I can think of a situation that just happened this past week that it ties back to a situation that goes back a few years. And I've mentioned this one a few times here on the show. This is an ex-friend who I had a falling out with a few years back because he had a tendency over time to be verbally abusive. Most of the time he'd be very friendly and caring and so forth. But then he had never really learned how to let go of his own anger. And so he needed to have somebody to dump it on. And so he'd start a fight or whatever. Sure. And the last time he started a fight, I'm pretty sure he was not conscious. He was
really,
he was just so completely out of it in terms of how much rage he was expressing. I don't think he was conscious about the situation. Yeah, he may have started the situation consciously, but in the middle, he was just seeing pure rage.
Was he drunk or?
I don't think so. No,
he was he was that engrossed in the emotion
there's a whole history with him, and I won't get into it because it's his business,
no, absolutely, sorry,
but there's a family history that makes it make a lot of sense. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
And the reason I bring this up is from that point on, my inclination was to end the relationship entirely. Now, this event that happened, I guess it was about 3 years ago, happened 3 days before he, myself, and a third guy were supposed to launch our new business.
Ooh.
And I got on our joint phone call on that day where we were getting ready to launch and said, I'm canceling, I'm out. And wouldn't give him any reason because, first of all, I was an emotional wreck after that. Because I just didn't even want to be on the same call with the guys. I was, to be honest, now I'm a very nonviolent person. If I was glad I was not in the same room, there was a more than 50-50 chance I was going to put my fist through his teeth. That's how angry I was at the way he had treated me. So I was very deliberately staying as far away from him. Sure.
His separation,
Exactly. The other thing was I wanted very much to end the relationship permanently. But we still had some financial interest together because he had certain clients that I helped service that paid me, not large amounts of money, but it was nice, decent, regular income. And like, well, geez, what do you do? Do you throw the money away and so forth? So basically, I put some really firm, hard boundaries in line. Essentially, it amounted to this. You can't contact me about anything except business, and you can only do it by email. That was it. And he had enough smarts to recognize he wasn't going to cross that line, and he didn't. And we kept that going for the last few years. And it was getting to the point where I was saying, I really don't need that income anymore. I might as well I should just lose it, right? Now, the particular client that, the last client we were working for, on his behalf was also a seasonal client. Like my business, my wife's business is a seasonal business.
Sure.
Is also a seasonal business. And we finished up with them in, I guess it was October. And I thought to myself, I wonder if we should just really stop it for next year. Well, I got an email from this guy saying that the client had retired. And I thought, it's amazing how this stuff works.
I know.
This is just amazing. But look at what happened with this dynamic. We have a relationship that was broken. It was based largely on, more than lack, was based on really low vibration stuff. But lack was certainly part of it. In fact, lack, I'm really convinced now, even if we had stuck it out and founded that business, which would have gone against every fiber of my being to do that. But even if we had done that, we had some pretty high-powered people there. I'm convinced it would have failed. I'm 100% convinced that business would have failed because there was this low vibe angst, this thing that was kind of hanging around there. Well, by having set that really firm boundary and sticking to it, not only did it end up ending the relationship and ending the business relationship, but it ended it at the perfect time. There was perfect timing to the whole thing. So we have a two-piece thing here. We have the financial side.
Right.
It got to the point where the financial side just didn't matter that much anymore.
Right.
The relationship side, I wanted that to go away anyway, and both happened the way they needed to happen.
Think about the people, out of that story. I was thinking about the people that ignore the nudges when to walk away. Or when to put the brakes on the whatever relationship. That could have been romantic. It could have been, his business, but it can be any level, right? And I think about the people that stay in that relationship thinking that it's going to get better. We'll just give it a little bit more time, or it'll be all right. It'll, maybe these are opening business jitters. Maybe it's just a little wrinkle.
Hey, I came within 3 days of actually helping to launch that business. So it's not like it's hard to stay in that space of justifying the way you're describing.
Right. But think about if you would have, if you think back in time and think about if you, Walt, if you wouldn't have walked away from that, essentially, keeping that same energy that you were in.
Yeah.
And just, number one, how miserable you would have been, but how potentially, that can also cause some residuals. Let's talk about some residuals. Not only business can tank, but you can also end up with physical illness. People take on all that stress, and guess what? The stress has to go somewhere, right? And the body holds onto it, that negative energy, and it gets stuck within the body.
I think also taking the health piece into account, a year after that happened is the year that Louise got sick with her thyroid condition.
Oh, wow.
So imagine what would have happened if I was dealing with all that other old stuff and dealing with my wife's thing at the same time. I probably would have gotten sick too.
Right.
And then I added another component. At that point in time, we didn't have the huge amount of debt that we previously had, but we still had substantial debt.
Sure.
I'm willing to bet that debt would have gotten worse by a large amount.
Sure.
I'm willing to bet that, in fact, there's a decent chance I would have had to deal with that bankruptcy I was fearing for all those years.
Sure.
Yeah.
So,
all because I fortunately I didn't, but I could have ignored those vibrational signals that I was getting that were.
But you listened to your gut.
It's not like these signs were hard to read either.
Right.
They were fairly obvious. When you have somebody who's screaming in your face, it's kind of hard to avoid noticing it.
Sure.
That's a clear signal. There's something not right here,
Right. Well, and the thing is too is, it's like you said, at least you listened to your gut. Even though, in your words, that the signals were very clear and very loud. And quite frankly, it was really in your face. But the thing is there's so many people that aren't listening to the signs and they keep going. And, and we're certainly not judging. We're just, it's more, it's in observance, and we're sharing Walt's story. But I just, kudos for you that takes a lot of courage too, because like you said, here you're dealing with all the angst of that individual that here you were friends for years with, and you're 3 days away from pulling the trigger on launching this business.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not only emotionally, but I'm sure you had a lot financially invested, and just the time and energy, right? And
absolutely. At the very
least. Like, what am I doing? Oh my God. Like if I do this, if I pull this one brick out, it'll all come crumbling down.
And what's really wild, and that brick, by the way, was me.
Right.
Because I was pulling me out. I was the brick. And once I pulled myself out, yes, it fell apart instantly. The whole thing just completely fell apart. The thing that's interesting to me, though, is how easy it was to do.
Mm.
It really wasn't difficult at all. Once I brought it to my conscious mind that there was a real problem here and it wasn't going to go away without directly addressing it, it was really easy. The hard thing would have been to not bring that to my conscious mind and try to wrestle my way through all this stuff.
Sure.
It's really important to come to a conclusion. What's going on with this situation? What's going on with this relationship? What's going on with this financial situation? What's going on with this health situation? What's going on with this fill in the blank with X situation? Whatever it is, what's really going on here? Because once you can answer that question, the hardest part was simply making the call, not because I didn't want to follow through, but because I wanted to get off the call as soon as possible. I really didn't even want to talk to the bastard. I really didn't want to. I mean, even the other, well, I can't even get into that part of the story, but there was another thing where, I can't even say it. It's private business. I can't go there.
Sure.
But there was another vibration. Let's put it that way. There was another vibration going on with the other guy who was a good guy. He was a good guy, but there was a vibration there that wasn't going to work. And it had nothing to do with him being bad or treating me badly, but there was something in there that I can't identify here on the air that if I had ignored that would have created mountains of problems for me, for him, for everybody that was involved, simply because I ignored, oh, well, we can work over that. No, don't do that. Address the thing that's right in front of you. It's there for a reason. Yeah. And when you do, it really is easy to walk away. Absolutely. And then you feel better about yourself. You feel, here's something I didn't know.
Okay.
I found this out as a result of going through this experience. Now, this ex-friend, like I said, he had a history. These episodes would come on every once in a while. And they'd happen mainly because he never really learned how to manage his own anger. He never knew how to get it out. He always had to have somebody else to dump it on. That was his only way he knew how to get anger out. So, it was periodic, right? What I didn't know is that when one person behaves abusively toward another person on a periodic basis, the effect is cumulative. Did you know that?
Yeah.
You did know that? Okay. Yeah. I didn't know that. It was a real shock. It
makes it okay.
Well, kind of it does, because you figure, well, I can handle this. I can take this. Yeah. And what you don't realize is that every time you're saying that, it's building until finally it reaches a point where all of a sudden the pain just goes off the charts, excruciating.
Yeah.
That part surprised me. That's the part that, whoa, where did that come from? And I think that's what made it so easy to break off, was the fact that I experienced, it was kind of like that overload. I received an overload from an overdose of his junk, and I couldn't take any more of it.
Right.
That overdose made it so easy to walk away from it. But once again, I had to recognize it. I had to notice it. I had to pay attention to it, which seems so strange to say, because how could I have avoided it?
Right.
And yet people do.
You ever think, though, looking back, Walt, and I know you've mentioned a couple times, but getting more on a soul level, right? And you talked about this the overdose of this, that negative energy, whatever you want to call it.
Well, this is more than negative. This was directed abuse.
Okay, so this is definitely abuse,
directed abuse.
Yeah. And here's what I would share, right? Is do you ever think that, you know, your soul, the reason that it was so easy for you to walk away is because that wasn't part of your soul's journey to learn that lesson. There's always a lesson in it, but what I'm saying is that was his journey. You were playing a part in his lesson.
I think so.
For his soul. And it's like, yeah, this isn't my lesson, like, to learn. Like, I don't need to learn what forgiveness, whatever. And it's like, I'm out.
Exactly.
Like that, I'm at the pinnacle. I'm done. My soul's like, I can't take this anymore, and I'm done. And saying, I learned a different lesson from this in a positive manner, even though the experience wasn't positive. But at the same time, you know, my soul's journey was to learn maybe this from it. But we all play different parts in everybody's learning experience, right? Mm-hmm. And in my true belief is that, you know, we're teachers for each other. I'm a mirror for you. You're a mirror for me, vice versa. Especially kids, right? Mm-hmm. And so sometimes when I have maybe a challenging, experience, such as you were describing the story, asking myself, what is it that I learned from this? Or what am I to learn from this, even if it isn't clear? And just the fact of asking that tells that you're at a space of acceptance.
Yes.
Ready to learn and saying, you know, at some level, even if I'm still emotionally charged or affected, I am still at a level that my soul is ready and awareness, or, you know, to learn from, even if it's challenging. But other people are just going through whatever it is they're going through, right? Like this gentleman. And, saying, you know, I really hope that, and that's the thing that I look at too. I really feel, and even though it's certainly does not excuse anything that anybody else does, but you'd think, wow, you know, what kind of trauma did somebody go through? Or I really hope that they found healing in some way, that they were able to find their way through that. Because here we are talking about it, and, you know, asking ourselves what was it that we could learn from, and trying to make constructive out of lemonade out of lemons, per se. And other people will just sit in the mire, right?
Oh yeah.
And continually, they always say, hurt people hurt other people unless they heal from it.
It's funny you should mention that, because like I said, I knew this guy really well. And when this stuff was happening leading up to that point, I had a pretty good idea of where it was all coming from. I mean, I just knew him well enough that I didn't have to be a therapist in order to figure it out. It was, you know, I just had enough information. And what he had essentially done, again, I can't get into anything specific. I have to be very general about it. He had adopted a manner of treatment that he had inherited from his parents and turned it into a virtue.
Okay.
So he basically had been abused and treated the abuse as if it were good. And then he turned that into, well, if it's good, then I can do it with others too, because it's good.
Right.
So he wasn't going to shake loose from that one, because he'd already decided this is a good behavior. Oof. Yeah. You know, all right. That's like the ultimate warning sign right there. That's basically, once you understand that about somebody else. Actually, the biggest mistake I made was staying as long as I did.
Right.
You know, which showed that I had something to learn from it. I had to actually come to terms, and I did. This is true. I had to come to terms with the idea that as much as I wanted to help him, because I did try to help him over the years, I tried to help him a number of different ways. You can't help somebody who doesn't want to be helped.
That beautifully said right there.
You just can't.
In fact, I was just saying that to my wife, I think today or yesterday. In fact, I said, you know, wanting to help others is great.
Yeah, it's noble.
But at the same time, you're only going to be able to help somebody that wants to be helped
and is willing to be helped.
Yeah, and you cannot You can't make them like, you will, you will get help. They got to figure that out. That's hopefully that's where the healing aspect comes in, and understand that's where the lesson lies. That's where the nuggets are, right? Going through the cave that we fear. That's the hard part. And
that's also where I've learned to trust both sides of the law of attraction. I mean, we typically, as human beings, think about the positive side. Well, I want to have a new home or a new job or whatever, so I'm going to focus on that. But law of attraction works on everything, so it works on the stuff that we don't like that comes into our lives.
Absolutely.
And all the same rules apply. Well, because of that, if I am going to change things up, I have to change what I'm giving my attention to. I have to change how I'm thinking about stuff. I have to change a whole lot of stuff. And as much as I might like to have that same thing happen for somebody else, I can't do it for them. And nor would I want to. I don't really want to, because I trust the law of attraction. And so I know that even though he is basically going to put himself through miserable times through the law of attraction because of the misery he dishes out to others. And by the way, I know for a fact he is. I know for 100% for a fact he's going through some really, really rough stuff right now. That's the way he needs to learn. So I trust the law of attraction to deliver to him the message he needs in the way that he needs, in the timing that he needs. And whether or not he decides to even learn the lesson in this lifetime is still not up to me. Right. It's completely up to him. And I got to be okay with that. I got to be okay with the fact that, you know what? That's part of the reason why we have law of attraction, so that we can attract to ourselves the experiences that we need the most in order to advance the way we need to advance. And sometimes we set ourselves up for some pretty harsh stuff.
We do. That's, we're interesting creatures for sure.
But there's also a power in this too, I think, because we're talking about letting other people do their own journeys in their own way. There's a power in that. When we can allow ourselves to do that and not allow ourselves to get all worked up about, oh God, he's going through this terrible thing, but simply respect that he's going through it in the way that he needs to, and that it's going to work out the way he needs it to work out. When we can get that perspective, that's a winning perspective. That's a healthy perspective. That's a perspective of, wow, I am now in the place of not lack, but abundance. Right. That's the abundant place.
Well, I think it's also a place of setting boundaries too, Walt. In fact, it was interesting because, one of the things that I always do every week, of course, is my Monday messages from Spirit, right? Like a general community reading for everybody, kind of out on Facebook and where I type those all out. And one of the things that I remember, Spirit was talking about, being flexible doesn't mean that you can't set boundaries.
Right.
And saying you can still be flexible, you can still be empathetic, you can still but setting boundaries is healthy. And if you don't, those, saying how far, where, I'm completely there with you. And, certainly a multi-level dynamic and, but yeah.
Well, there's so many different levels that this stuff works on.
It's like, what rabbit hole are you down now?
Exactly. Sometimes it isn't rabbit holes. Sometimes it's holes through the ceiling. I mean, it's in all different directions.
Right. It's like, whoop, come out through the mirror.
They don't call this woo-woo for nothing, let me tell you.
Right. Yeah. I always used to joke with a friend of mine and I said, we always had a running joke about taking a trip around the universe in our dishwasher. And, and cause I said one time, and I was very honest, I said, you're not going to believe me, but I said, I think my dishwasher is a portal. And it was just like where energy was showing up for some weird reason. And I can't even remember all the details, but it was so weird. It's not there anymore. And she was like, no, I'd believe you. And so we always had the running joke of, I think I'm going to hop in the dishwasher today and just take a ride. Just go for a ride around the universe, just see where I'm going to go. And, so she has her and her husband have a cat. And so the cat always gets in the dishwasher, and she said, here's a little Tabby going for a ride around the universe, so we still have a running joke of, hopping in the dishwasher. And, I said, hell, don't get in the washer, or don't get in the dryer. I don't know where that'll take you. So
yeah, right. Well, I mean, once you figure out where the washer can go, I mean, the dryer can probably really go anywhere, right?
The dryer will take you where all the socks go. So we're all lost.
So we're solving an eternal mystery. What happens to the other side?
Right?
Okay.
And that's the land of Tupperware lids and oddly placed socks. That's where it goes.
Actually, it isn't so much Tupperware lids. It's Tupperware containers without lids and Tupperware lids without containers.
Well, right. They're all the land of misfit toys, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is.
It's actually on the next side over on that same island, but it's just a little ways over the mountain range. Yeah, it's kind of divided. Socks stay to themselves and, lids and everything.
Well, the socks end up where the pens go, I think.
Right. Oh, Lord, lighters. I'm sure everything else. Good Lord. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. This has been quite a good conversation, though. I mean,
it would be.
When we got started, I really wasn't sure what's going to happen just because we didn't have a lot of listener mail, which is a little bit unusual, but we got, and I had these two topics written down. And I looked at them and said, they really don't interlink. Well, guess what? They interlink perfectly.
Sure, everything connects, right?
I mean, we somehow got onto this financial thing. I think because you mentioned you were getting your taxes done, and that just kind of set the whole thing off. And as we're going, I think, wow, it really did connect all that stuff together. So even that must be what it's like when you're a medium, right? You get this bit of information, you say, what on earth does that connect
What
to?
does that mean?
You throw it out there, they say, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. You say, what are you talking about?
But you know what, Walt? It isn't about us.
That's true.
It has nothing to do about us. It's for somebody else. We're having this conversation, and if you resonate with it, great. If you don't, that's beautiful too. But that's when you go, this makes, okay, well, it's not for you then, but that's okay. Thanks for being part of the conversation.
Hey, I thought it was good.
Thanks for being the vessel today.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Thanks for being the vessel. Yeah.
But the whole conversation proved me wrong. I didn't think it was going to make any sense. It made perfect sense to me.
Right. There you go. See?
Holy cow. It was just crazy.
Universe, what are you guys talking about? Good Lord. We knew.
We got this. We got your back. No problem.
We got this. Just show up. Just show up every week, guys.
Hey, just a little reminder. First of all, the LOA Today app has been updated. It has been approved at the iPhone level. We're waiting for the Android people to do their thing. They're uncharacteristically slow right now. Usually it's the other way around. It's usually the Android people that are quicker. But this time around, Android's a little bit slow. So we're waiting for them. And the iPhone people actually I sent a little update because I found a bug in what I originally submitted. But that should be updating on your phones in the next few days. And that's going to include the ebook that a number of us created a couple years ago, Your Daily Dose of Happy, Real Success Stories of the Law of Attraction. It's got 55 manifestation stories in it. So you want to check that out. On the LOA Today app, and use the app to send in questions and comments because that's how we get really good conversations going. When we don't have our own, there's come out of thin air out of two comments that didn't make any sense, and all of a sudden they make sense. That stuff happens too. But we love it when you guys send stuff in. So take advantage, send stuff in, and we'll bring that up for next week. And this has been good. Thank you. Thank you for bringing up your taxes. Who knew that taxes would be a good.
Next time
topic.
I'll show everybody. No, it's maybe you go through the itemized list. Hey, you could have got another deduction.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, then I'll see you next week. Thank you, especially to our podcast listeners. And we will see you all next time here on LOA Today.
Have a great week, everybody.
All right.